Welcome back to another podcast episode where we help aspiring developers get jobs and junior developers grow. It has been a while since we reviewed Nucamp. It's been a long while. And I know Nucamp came out with a new backend program, and I heard that they made some changes, at least to some of the front-end curriculum. So decided to do another review. So we're going to check it out, see how these three students, how their experiences have gone. Katy's currently in the full stack program, but she did the back. And then Ross and Christina, you did the full stack, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, before we dive into it, we're going to go ahead and do intros, get a little feel for people. So I guess a few questions. We'll start with you, Katy. I kind of just explained it. You're still in the curriculum, but like, what are you doing currently? And what profession did you come from before this?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Katy. I actually have been working in HR for the last 7 years, so human resources. So I'm also currently still in HR and doing the full stack bootcamp full-time as well, or part-time as well. So I'm just working and trying to finish up before hopefully trying to land a job in engineering at the end of the year or early next year.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And Ross, we had a question for you. Well, I guess because you're graduated, so do you currently have a position, or are you still looking? And then, when did you graduate, and what profession did you come from?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Don. I am currently on the job hunt for my first role as a front-end developer. I graduated back in April, late April, and currently I work at Apple on the retail side, technical support. So I'm a Mac technician. I went part-time initially whenever I started Nucamp, and I've just been kind of coasting, wanted to take a step back so I could, hopefully move into that software position.
All right, cool. Thank you. How about you, Christina?
I was in the cohort at Nucamp with Ross, and we graduated around the same time, late April. I have not found a full-time software engineering position. I've been working with variable assign for a little over 2 years, but it's part-time, it's here and there, and it's not as in-depth as I'd like it to be. So I'm still technically looking for my big fancy job.
Cool. What did you do before you decided to move to software engineering?
I was an accountant 2 years ago. So Gotcha. I was in finance for 15 years, and I'm doing this for me. Okay.
Love it. All right. I appreciate everyone's introduction. Let's go ahead and jump into things. So when you were choosing coding boot camps, you kind of know what you like and what you don't like about it now. So try to ignore that. But when you were first choosing coding boot camps, why did you choose Nucamp? And we'll talk over each other, so anyone's free to answer.
I can start if that's all right. For me, the money, it was a huge part. I was looking into a lot of these, and when I'm seeing $20,000 or $2,000 for my current situation, it didn't seem like, if it went terrible, it's $2,000. It's not great. Nobody wants to lose that, but it's much better than being 20 grand in debt. So the flexibility and cost, that was number one for me.
It's Nucamp's only $2,000 for the full stack?
I did the web fundamentals, which is about $400, give or take a few dollars. That's a 4-week course. I did that just kind of to give myself a little bit of a refresher. And I want to say I spent right around $2,000 for the full stack plus mobile program.
Gotcha. You might have just said it. How much was the web fundamentals?
It was about $350, $400 in that range, if I remember correctly. It's basically you're getting 4 weeks of a refresher of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, I actually signed up for it's called the Complete Software Engineering Pathway. It's basically every bootcamp they have plus web fundamentals. And even that, it costs, I just looked it up last night, it's $42.68 exactly. So it's extremely, affordable compared to the other options that were out there. I mean, I think what their marketing says 10 times less. And I think when you do the research, it really is about 10 times less than most of the larger bootcamps.
Okay.
Right. So I didn't do the web fundamentals. I did the full stack, and it came out to about 18, I think. And that's, compared to the student loan debt that I'm paying right now, that's nothing. So yes, price was definitely a factor. I did a lot of research months of research before I chose them. And I had a lot of other boot camps that were, on site, and I'm in Atlanta, so they were around, they were pretty close, but they all wanted to do that where you pay them back from your check after they get you a job or something like that. And I know a few people who are doing that right now, and they hate it. So I was just like, no, I'm good on that.
I don't know. Flexible. Okay. I don't know why I thought it was more expensive. Huh. So
super affordable.
Super affordable.
So the full stack, I was thinking it was like over $6,000 when you include the back end.
So one thing, Don, it may be a little bit more now. I know when Christina and I were at Nucamp, the back end section was 4 weeks. It might have been 4 or 5, and you are just barely touching the fundamentals. So it was kind of like a front end boot camp with a month of some back end fundamentals after. Now I know there's a whole other program. So I've looked at the curriculum. I don't know everything that's in it, but it's quite a bit more than what Christina and I signed up for.
Really? We still have access to it, right? Like, are we able to go back in and look at what we've learned, or do we get the new stuff? I wasn't sure about that.
Just for the courses that, like, I know React was we were the last cohort to get the old React. There were no hooks included, which that was one thing that, I was happy to at least see get changed. Yeah. I know that we have access to that, but as far as other courses, I don't believe so. As far as like the Python and the other stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I think the way it works is you have a lot to do. So it's like we're still in there. It's still boot camp every day, even though we graduate. So
well, let's go ahead and jump into your experiences then. What do you guys think about it?
Well,
we'll dive into depth quite a bit, but just kind of surface level stuff for now.
Okay. Well, I have good and I have bad. I think it's great that it's affordable. It's great that it's flexible around your own schedule. It's great that, I think they have really good instructors. Apart from one that I had, they were all pretty great. It's just, I felt like I maybe would have benefited a little bit more from being on site, from being there every day, from, the thing that I didn't want with the other boot camps that were $20,000 was being there every day and the commitment. I think I kind of would have benefited a little more if I had that. Somebody on me every day, and we can't leave, and we have lunch, and we come back, and we're hitting the whiteboard. The flexibility is great, but you have to be on it. You have to make sure you meet those deadlines, and it's very intense, in my opinion, anyway.
I think that's fair.
I would agree 100% with everything Christina just said. As far as instructors, I had a couple I wasn't crazy about. The rest of them were awesome. So one thing I did really enjoy about Nucamp that I was skeptical about going in is all of the instructors are part-time. So all these people have jobs. And at first I thought that was weird. And what I realized is a lot of them, they want to be there. They want to be teaching and they have that passion. So like my React Native instructor was probably my favorite. And
what was his name?
He helped me. His name was Matt Moser. I believe I'm saying that correctly. Forgive me, Matt, if you're seeing this. He was my favorite out of the whole experience. And we took React Native right after React. That's where I started to, struggle a little bit more. You're getting out of Bootstrap. It's just getting more technical. And Matt, I felt like taught me React and React Native in that 5 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it was. I had other instructors who, you give feedback at the end of every week and at the end of every course. My web fundamentals instructor, camera off day one. It's kind of weird. You're paying for an instructor, and the instructor was good. I gave the feedback next week. It was turned on. But, that's something like I want to be able to look at somebody, especially in the time we're in where a lot of stuff is virtual. I didn't expect that. So that was my first impression on the web fundamentals. But other than those two instances, I have nothing but great things to say about every instructor I have.
Okay.
Yeah, and likewise, I have almost only good things to say. I had one instructor that I would say was maybe not the best fit for just how the program was set up, but everybody else was phenomenal. I had a really, really great instructor for Web Fundamentals, Serta. So Serta, if you're watching, thank you. And he was probably just the best first instructor to have, really motivating and engaging, and really, held you accountable and got you kind of ready to go for the whole self kind of paced, the way it's set up in Nucamp. So that was really great.
Okay. I like it. It's a pretty good start. I'll kind of write things down. We'll go over a couple things maybe towards the second half of it, but I'm kind of curious, what did you think of the actual curriculum and material?
For me, it was solid. I wasn't quite as aware as it's pretty outdated, and everything that I'm bringing up, it does seem has been acknowledged and a lot of stuff has been updated, but there were no hooks in the React section. And as React is starting to finally come together for me, I'm realizing man, I would have loved to have an instructor there, telling me this stuff that is extremely important. We tend to use versions that are a little outdated. I think it was Bootstrap for the React was a little behind, and not to jump too far ahead, but there's the self-guided career services, and I think it's a 6-week thing that you take afterwards on your own. And that's where I was like, what is this? And it just felt super outdated. It felt like I was in high school watching a video of how to write a resume, and just being completely honest there. Everything else was awesome, but that was the one thing that I was like, I don't know about this.
I think I'm gonna have to agree. After we graduated, we still dig in every day. We're still building. So we know firsthand what's missing, right? After you go through the entire curriculum and we're done with it, and now we have to build sites from scratch ourselves, we're like, where was this part of the course? Or there was something missing. Or if you're wondering, I didn't go over data structures and algorithms almost at all, I have to do that 3 times a week right now. Because, it's not included, right? But we knew that before going in. I didn't see arrays and hash maps and everything on the curriculum. So there's things that are missing, but there's going to be something missing with every bootcamp. Everywhere you go, you're going to have to finish yourself. This is your life. This is something that you've chosen to do. You have to dig in. So there's going to be something missing everywhere. But I think I'm happy to have lifetime access to the course. So when it's updated, I go back and retake it myself. So I agree with Ross. It's a little, especially the career curriculum. I expected Zoom calls with my career advisor and we're going over interview questions. That's what I expected, because they kind of, hype it up a bit where, you get a full instructor, he's dedicated to you. And it was
I did. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, Christina. Okay. You do get 4 sessions with a career coach. And I actually really liked my career coach. I took 2 of them. He actually stepped down for the summer, so I think I have to finish the last 2 with somebody else. But I had very valuable Zoom calls, 1-hour sessions. But the material you go through on your own, it was from a university. I can't remember which university, but it felt like it came out in 1998. It was odd, but that was one thing. I did have some good success with my career coach.
Well, I think maybe I haven't done it yet, to be honest. I haven't arranged it. We've been emailing and it's just, same responses, kind of like robotic responses. I guess everybody has the same questions, right? It's just, I feel like I'm not talking to a person. I feel like I'm talking to a chatbot. which with the AI nowadays is really good anyway. But it's just, I'm not there yet. And I'm, interviewing and bouncing around and recruiter calls, and it's like a lot happening. So maybe I'll take advantage of it. But, I wouldn't be surprised if I made it without that person.
And I would agree. I think my experience is a little bit different coming from the back end first, because they did update, from my experience, they did update data structures and algorithms a lot more on the actual back end course with Python. So we jumped in and went through that like in the first 5 weeks. So that is good. It was really fast. So I know I'm going to have to, go back and do a lot more like deep dive on that when I'm done with the full stack. And then I think this might be relatively new, but they did add like a job hunting bootcamp. So I think it's something additional you could add on. I believe it's like $429. But my understanding is it's kind of set up like to go through like interview practice questions and data structures and algorithms more. But I believe it's new, so they might have just started that, but I have that at the end of the year. So maybe, I can provide more insight at that time.
And that's one thing I do like. A lot of the stuff that I was unhappy with seems to be like Ludo and everybody at Nucamp. They seem to take all the feedback pretty graciously, which I think is good. It's good to know that this program is getting a little bit better for the next batch of students and so on and so on. And they don't seem to stand firm on anything. They're welcome to any feedback.
Yeah.
So I've kept up to date with Ludo. I've talked with him quite a few times. We've hopped on Zoom just to chat about random stuff. And one thing I will say about it, he doesn't get offended easily, and he's pretty open to feedback, and he's pretty grounded with it. Now, I've told him before, sometimes he drinks his own Kool-Aid a little bit too often, but a lot of CEOs do. A lot of coding bootcamp founders do. So I challenged quite a few things with him, but I do think he takes the feedback very seriously. He can't always apply it right away, and that's understandable, and he's probably looking at a lot of feedback. And I would even disagree on some of the choices he's made, but I think he does very much care about what people say with the feedback, which is awesome. And even just to echo the sentiment with the self-paced career, whatever, I've actually had some people that they were kind of too shy to come on, which is understandable, and they echoed the same thing. They mentioned I should kind of bring that up and ask you guys about it, and you were transparent right from the beginning about it, so I do appreciate that. It sounds like that needs some work, and it sounds like, it's a pretty cheap coding bootcamp, so he's essentially, he's outsourcing it to a college curriculum, at least parts of it maybe. I don't know what else he is outsourcing, but that is the strategy for a very cheap coding bootcamp, to be able to provide something like this. I would argue, though, Christina, after analyzing like a lot of curriculums from very expensive coding bootcamps, there are curriculums where it does teach you everything that's going to make you hireable, but at a very high price tag. And so you have to decide, is that even worth it? Or can I just learn it on my own afterwards, right? Can I just supplement on my own? So, essentially this program is making trade-offs. And my questions basically are, is it making the right trade-offs? So... But yeah, go ahead.
I think, I don't want to say you get what you pay for, but
you do. It's true. It's not necessarily bad.
Correct.
I just think that I made the choice to not spend $20,000. So that means that I am going to need to supplement that additional $18,000 myself. So, there's, like Hack Reactor and is it Galvanize or General Assembly? They have super intense curriculums. And I think when you're working in a cohort, in a room with like, you have to be focused, that helps. And then repetitively every day, like I have to touch, in order to learn something, I don't know about you guys, but I have to do it like 3 or 4 times. So I think being in a cohort with people who are teaching you every day, that helps retention. So I get it.
I don't look at you get what you pay for. It sounds kind of blunt, but I think it's, when I was looking at these numbers, and Don, your channel really helped me form my decision on choosing Nucamp, because I'm seeing like, all right, so there's Flatiron, there's General Assembly, there's Hack Reactor. There's all these cool ones that look awesome that I would love to go to. But I'm fortunate to not have a bunch of debt, and I really, really didn't want to pick that all up. And, I'm seeing all these YouTubers who are saying like, yeah, just do this in 6 months and then you're making 100K. And then I'm seeing a lot of stuff about people who are getting jobs making 40K, and then the boot camp is saying, well, yeah, you still have to pay us back. And these aren't necessarily software jobs. It might be IT related, just barely. And I was fortunate I know 2 people personally who attended Nucamp in the last couple of years. And a friend of mine, Seth from Apple, told me like, hey, this is a great program, but you have to supplement. And if you do the bare minimum, you probably aren't going to come out, a master. And that helped me tremendously, because I think I pay like $40 a month for Codecademy. I've had that for about a year. And what I would do as we're going through, certain concepts throughout the week, I would supplement it with other stuff. And I just planned like that from day one. So to me, like, I still am happy with the cost, over being in any kind of tremendous debt.
It's a good strategy for new students.
It's good. It's a lot of things that you have to do on your own. Like we were doing them before we joined the bootcamp. So of course we're going to be doing them throughout the bootcamp, Udemy, Coursera, everything. I started a squad on what is it, Career Karma? Something like that. Right. To be self-taught. So like everything that's free and some things that are paid, we're doing it.
I think, especially given the times we are in now, I think one of the best options for aspiring developers is to be very frugal with a lot of their expenses. And I think one of the best choices you can make, and I'm not even trying to sell Nucamp, just their pricing model. One of the best choices you can make is a lot of people want to try the self-taught route, but it's really tough with zero support, and you have to build up that support and relationships and find a community. And like, it's a lot of effort, right? And if you can find something that is just, a few $1,000s that doesn't put you in massive debt, and it gets you like 80% of the way there. And then you just, the thing is, when you go through a curriculum like this, Christina, you said it well, the holes once you come out of it. Right? Because pretty much every coding bootcamp is going to teach you what you need to learn to get that job. And usually the curriculums move too fast or they miss over things. But by the end, you kind of have a good idea of what you still need to learn. That's what pretty much almost every coding bootcamp will teach you. So if you have that, you can kind of mix the self-taught and coding bootcamp world to find this in-between medium that's going to be very affordable for people, where you can still hold your jobs and you don't have to, in the middle of like what this recession is starting, just quit your job and go to a full-time coding bootcamp, which is much riskier. Right. It's a middle ground that I honestly do think people should consider a little bit more. And I've seen advertisement and lie after lie after lie with all these big coding boot camps. I know exactly what people actually land those 100K jobs. It's not the typical student. And there's a lot of ways where they're able to exclude salaries from the data that they present. And a big one is, did they graduate on time? We only show data for people that graduated on time. And if you didn't, you had to roll back. You're not one of our top students. We're not going to include you in the data. And essentially, so it's going to keep the numbers boosted quite a bit. Almost every coding boot camp lies in that way. I've seen it time and time again, and it gets actually much worse than that. But yeah, so I'm saying like, you do get what you pay for, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Cool.
Right. Especially once we get hired.
Exactly. So another complaint I heard was people wish they would have had more one-on-one time with instructors or just gotten more one-on-one support. What do you guys think about that?
I would agree. I think I had some instructors that were, I believe like some of them might not work full-time jobs. Like I have one that's on maternity leave right now, and she was like way more like available for us to just like jump on during the week. But I've had other instructors that like, they work like 60 hours a week and they're not able to do that. They're able to do like 10. So I think it does depend on like what type of instructor you have and maybe what's going on in their personal life as well, and how willing they are able to do one-on-ones with you.
Okay.
Katie, I don't know the cohort size you're in currently, but Christina and I, there wasn't too many of us. I would say, would you say 8, maybe 8?
Oh. 5 or 6.
So
well,
it
maybe
was
7.
A couple people dropped out as we got a little further, and I didn't really feel that there was, the one-on-one time felt okay for me. And I actually had reached out. There was a couple of weeks where I was struggling, and I actually got some help outside of, the standard hours. And I will say my experience was pretty good in that sense. I had a couple of, I know my Bootstrap instructor, she got on a call with me, and it was like I want to say it was her child's birthday or something. And I almost felt bad. She was awesome. And she jumped on and helped me out. And I didn't have that experience. Now, I don't know what a standard cohort is. I was surprised at how small they were, and Christina and I's, but yeah, I assume they're all under 12. That's what I thought I was signing up for. 12 and
12,
under.
right. That's what they were telling us when we signed up, that it was 12. How big was yours?
I think all of ours have been 12 to 15. So I think it's been about double that. But 5 to 6, actually, I can see how that would be easier to get one-on-one time. I mean, sometimes we would on Saturdays, like if you stay late, a lot of the instructors were able to stay a little bit after. But I think just with 12 to 15 people, it was a little bit more difficult to schedule, I would say, for our group.
So one thing that's popping up for me right now is, and I felt that some weeks this was me, if I was struggling with something, I felt that it kind of, in the virtual setting, it took away from, say, Christina's experience. So if I'm hung up on a certain concept, I'm having a hard time with something, we're sharing screens, I did feel that would kind of take away from the whole cohort's progress, if that makes sense. There was no admission really. It's take this quiz on W3 schools. It's honor system. That was one thing that, I feel like I came in here very much as a beginner. So I felt that I was kind of in the middle, where I wasn't the smartest person in the class. I might have been in the middle there. But that was one thing that's popping up, not to get too random here, but I would have liked to see admissions be handled just a little bit different with, hey, you're ready for this, or hey, you need to take the web fundamentals. I had taken 2 or 3 months of Code Academy on my own. So I had thought, I'm still very new to this. I'm going to sign up for the fundamentals. But I do think that, the quiz, I would like to see that get updated too, or more personalized just to Nucamp.
It's good feedback.
Yeah, it really is, especially since I know exactly what he's talking about. It was
W3 schools is great. Not saying anything there, but I was surprised to see that was the admission test.
Yeah, especially since I'd already taken that. Right, we're on our own. We're taking quizzes all the time, and I'm like, I got a 98. Does that mean I'm ready? Must be ready. And then I get in there, and I'm like, holy hell. What is going on? What have I done with my life? And I think the time that I have with my instructors was definitely not enough, but that's just me being greedy. Like I am one of those students where I'm like, I will work on something for 2 hours, even though they say 20 minutes. I want to, get there on my own. This way I can retain more and I don't ever have to have this problem again. And then especially with Matt Moser, like React Native, he was everything. I call him boss man. I would just I'll get on Slack and I say, boss man, I need a call. He'd be like, okay, give me 10 minutes. It is 9:30 at night. And that call lasted maybe an hour. Like he was everything that you hope to get from the instructors at a boot camp. And then
and he had a newborn.
Right. He had a newborn baby.
This baby was like a month old. He was awesome.
And then I had a cohort instructor, I think it was React, which is like the hardest course you've ever taken in your life, for me anyway. So I needed that for the React course, and I wasn't getting it. And he was literally like 20 miles from me. So we could have gotten together if it was open or chatted more. And he responded, but I felt like he this is gonna sound really bad. He helped me more than I wanted him to help me, if you understand, right? Like, he gave me a lot more. Matt Moser's like, no, this is what you need to be thinking about. This is what you need to remember the concept of. Go find out, come back. I'll be right here. Like, he would wait for me to get there. He'd give me little hints, but he wouldn't give me the answer. And I thoroughly appreciate that. Because if somebody gives you the answer, it's not the same. Right. If you get the answer, it's like, great. Okay. How am I going to remember how to do that next time? So that was just my experience.
Okay. Matt,
I remember,
shout out to Matt.
Yeah, he was
That's a good instructor. Hopefully he's compensated for that.
One thing, with the React section that's coming up, I noticed we did workshops every Saturday, and then the solutions would get posted by this instructor. And that's where I'm thinking about what Christina just said. I need to struggle. I need somebody who's going to help me struggle and figure it out, rather than just say, hey, here's what's going on. And then sure, I have it submitted and I get the assignments completed and everything, but did I really get it? I felt that React started to come together. I didn't really learn anything in React until React Native. And then that's when everything kind of started to just make sense a little bit more. And I felt that was a huge factor.
Okay. A lot of good feedback on React. I kind of want to hear a little bit more on the backend program, Katy. What did you love about it and what did you hate about it?
I really love I thought all the technologies were very relevant. Python, that was my first introduction to Python and I really liked it. And honestly, it's my favorite language now. So I really just did this complete software engineering track to just kind of see if it was something I was going to be able to do for myself and just something I was going to be able to stick with. So when I started in backend, I really had low expectations of what I was going to be able to do, because I'm pretty sure I want to do more front end work later on. But I was actually surprised. I thought they did a pretty good job at making it very learnable if you have no experience. I thought Python and SQL were very relevant. Most people I know of that got developer jobs after Bootcamp, one of the things they stressed was learning SQL. And that was my first introduction to it as well. So I think they did a really good job at that. And I really don't have any complaints about it. I really had a really good time in the backend, even though I had low expectations. So, yeah.
Okay. You had mentioned that they went over data structures and algorithms a little bit.
Yes.
Did you, I guess, how in depth did you go? Did you even touch on Big O notation or? Mm-hmm. You did. We did
touch on it. You're going really fast through the curriculum. So I would say we had about a week on it. So it's definitely an introduction, at least for me. You're going to have to, go back and supplement it, but it was at least a good introduction. I would say I had no experience with any of that. So we went over Big O, time complexity. All the other larger data structures and algorithm. And I think they did a pretty good introduction on that in the back end.
Okay. That's definitely good to know.
Did you not do Big O in the front stack at all?
I taught myself data structures and algorithms in order to prepare for these Big Fang interviews and things. So I dug in and I learned and I did it on my own. So it's it's pretty cool that you got to do it at Nucamp. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, I definitely would have signed up for the program, Katie's, and if it was available at the time, just because I'm digging deep into all of this now. And while I do feel that, I am looking to work in front end, but I do feel that it would have been, even if it was a week or two of the most fundamental stuff, I definitely, I had a couple assessments where I was like, what is going on? And I actually took 3 or 4 weeks to kind of step away from the job hunt just to hammer that out, kind of get some fundamentals down.
You have to do that. You absolutely have to do that.
It looks like, so I know the job hunting thing is new, and I know none of you went through that actual, I don't know if they call it job hunting boot camp or whatever, but that's the job hunting portion. Because when you're talking about the self-paced career, what do you call it, career services, is that the job hunting program or is that within the full stack program?
That's just included within the full stack program.
Gotcha. So I would, because I remember, even just looking at it, they do touch on data structures and algorithms. It does look like that in the job hunting thing. So if you are struggling, maybe, I mean, if you have resources, keep using those resources, but there is that available. I don't know how good it is though. So actually, anyone watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments if you are actually going through the program.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look because I didn't see that.
Yeah, definitely. And reach out, like if you're questioning, do I need to know the basics of this before I get into this, etc. Like feel free to reach out to Ludo or whoever you can, but definitely check it out. Katy, how did you feel about the transition? Because you're a few weeks into the full stack. How do you feel about the transition going from the backend program to the full stack? Did they transition well?
So I had 6 weeks off in between. So after I was done with the back end, I kind of just did a little bit of supplement myself. So I did things like Scrimba and Codecademy. But I would say the transition is pretty good. I think Bootstrap is very intuitive to start off with, especially since React's next. And it sounds like, I think everybody agrees that's the hardest. And I think I'm going to be one of the first cohorts to take the updated React with Hooks course. So I think, transitioning to Bootstrap is very intuitive. I mean, we're on week 3 and we're just getting into JavaScript components. So I think they did a pretty good job transitioning, in my opinion, at least.
How comfortable do you feel with vanilla CSS without Bootstrap?
Vanilla CSS, I feel pretty comfortable. I would say HTML and CSS are very comfortable. It's kind of JavaScript where I still, no matter how much I supplement, I still always struggle with JavaScript. But
of course. It's always JavaScript. How about Ross and Christina? How about you? How do you feel about CSS?
It's been a strength for me. I'm sorry, Christina. You can go ahead.
No, I think it's just I'm comfortable enough, right? But with the introduction of Bootstrap, it's like who's going back? So yeah, it's not super hard to dig into that. Go ahead, Ross.
Bootstrap, I would argue, and I really want to emphasize this for all of you, because all of you are seeking jobs, do not rely on Bootstrap. That is something that's going to be a minority of positions. Get comfortable with CSS. I would argue JavaScript, it needs to be your strength, and CSS is probably going to be your secondary, but don't lean on a company using Bootstrap.
Okay.
So you just brought that up, and it just kind of gave me just a reminder that, so one of the first assessments I took on my job hunt, it was a take-home assessment, and you're basically given a pretty basic, it was like a scenario where, hey, a junior developer below you didn't finish this, here's what you need to finish. And I was leaning hard on Bootstrap, specifically because it was coming pretty easy to me, and I was making some landing pages just for some friends and some businesses. It was a good way to practice. And I had made 10, just as an example, responsive nav bars. And then I get into this first assessment where they want me to use just vanilla JavaScript, CSS, HTML. And I can do that, but I was leaning so hard on Bootstrap for so long that it kind of threw me off. So you bring up a good point, and I've been diving more into the fundamentals just through Udemy and some courses of my own. And the CSS stuff has always been fairly easy to me, and that's one of my strengths. But vanilla JavaScript, I wish it would have touched a little bit more, even in the web fundamentals. It was kind of like a brief 4-week thing. I didn't learn a ton in the fundamentals, but it was a great refresher. It would be cool if it was just a little bit more in depth on vanilla JavaScript.
Okay. That's good to know. So you feel like you wish they would have added a little bit more so you really had the JavaScript fundamentals down?
Yeah, and this could also just be what I need to work on personally. There is a refresher section in the curriculum. So I know before React, you do some vanilla JavaScript, but I think part of the problem for me was I was practicing on my own with just Bootstrap. It was easy to me. And then kind of as you're saying, I'm not seeing a ton of positions asking for it. Not many companies are asking for it. So I personally made the mistake of just kind of leaning on it a little too much. I was kind of using it as a crutch because it was one of my strengths. And then I get this fairly easy task of a nav bar, and I'm like, whoa, what am I doing? Just because I had been doing Bootstrap so often.
Okay, that's fair. What was I going to say? I think I have a good idea of the curriculum. We touched on the instructors. We touched on kind of just the support, and we had some mixed feedback with that. And I would highly recommend you do take advantage of those sessions, Christina, to meet with the advisor if you have the 4. Try one, see if it works out for you. But I would argue most people, actually, I shouldn't say most people, a lot of people don't take advantage of that, even in like $20,000 coding boot camps. It is when you can get that hands-on experience, you have a better, I don't know, you probably have a decent shot of even just getting some practical advice with the context of your conversation that a self-paced curriculum will not give you. Sometimes just having a conversation, even just like expressing your concerns of what you're worried about, like I got to supplement all this, they probably heard that. They probably heard some of those complaints from other students as well. And they might even be able to say, oh, okay, so what are you doing to solve that? Oh, I don't know if I'd recommend that. I actually recommend this. Most students actually find this piece of curriculum way better. Or they find these job posting sites a lot more helpful. I know our curriculum kind of says this, and that's the kind of conversation you get when you talk to a real person. I highly recommend you take advantage of that. That's just kind of an extra tidbit.
I'll do it.
Awesome. Okay. I feel like I kind of have a good understanding of everything. I'm kind of curious about your experiences with other students. What do they do to help you engage with your cohorts or your classes? Do they do like pair programming? Do you work on any group projects?
There is the option too. Sorry, you can go ahead, Katie.
Oh no, you can go ahead. Okay.
I know that, so for instance, like the portfolio projects, you have the option of doing, they're optional altogether. So that was one thing to me, they should be required. That's huge. But you have the option to work on it either with yourself, by yourself or with somebody. As far as peer programming though, it was kind of like, we're all going to get through the assignment. There wasn't really a project or anything where you were paired up with anybody. However, we did have breakout rooms on Zoom on Saturdays. So, we would go through the material for the week, and then we would be moved over to a breakout room where we can work, with another student or 2 students. There wasn't a ton of us. So it was often like groups of 3 or 4. Then the instructors would bounce between the 2 rooms. We all meet together at the end. I would have liked to see something required to where it's like, hey, Ross, work on this with Christina or work on this with Katie. That would have given me just a lot of good experience with jumping out of my comfort zone. So I would have liked to see that a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would agree completely with Ross. And like one of the, like my cohort group was larger, but we would have either like groups of 2s on Saturdays or groups of 3s. And, some of the times like I would get into our breakout room and like, we'd be there for a second, like the other students' cameras would be turned off, like mics off. And like, I think a couple times I just jumped off without saying anything. So that could make it difficult. I think like our cohort, like we got like a little group of like 3 or 4 of us. And one of the feedback that I left for one of the instructors was it would be nice to just pick our breakout rooms if possible. And she actually did implement that the next time for our cohort. And it was really helpful. Everybody was engaged that way, and we got to work on our projects together, and I actually really benefited myself. So I think if anyone else is experiencing that, it was super helpful that, she was able to let us do that.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with Ross that it would be good to have collaborated more. My comfort zone is to work alone. That's just, I'm an introvert, and I'd rather not have to wait for somebody to do a portion of the project, or have somebody not turn it in and it's not done, or, I kind of deal with that in real life. So you lose when you're alone, you lose the collaboration part of it, which is a huge part of the job. You have to collaborate, and whether or not you're comfortable with it, it's, 90% of the jobs out there, you have to collaborate. So it would have been good. Did I want to be put in a breakout room with people? No, absolutely not. Did I have my camera off sometimes? Yeah, because I need you to turn off your mic because I can't concentrate. Like that, I experienced a couple of times where I would suggest you put me in a room alone just because we're all working on the project and, these few people are talking and I can't concentrate. And I can mute me. I can't mute you. So I'm hearing everything and it's delaying me and I need to turn this in tonight. So there's good and bad. I have to get out of my comfort zone, like Ross said. Like you have to make it work.
Really like the Slack channel was great. Oh, yeah. And that was like a huge community. It was awesome to be, if you got stuck and you weren't hearing from an instructor, there were people lining up to help out. And that's one thing. I still go on there every day or two and just to kind of see what's going on, check out the job search. And that was really valuable. So I have nothing but good things to say about the Slack channel. Although I didn't post in there a ton, I would often, review other issues that, students were having. And sometimes it was the problem I was having. And I got a lot of good value out of that.
And you find that you could actually help. I was so surprised that I could help. Even being so new and these people are having the problems that I just had, you're able to help. That Slack channel is everything. And that's the way we still talk to instructors and have meetings. And he's still answering my questions. Like, it's amazing.
I've heard pretty good things about the Slack community. He's a pretty loyal community. I have a question. I want inside information. He does these live streams every Friday. I think he still does these. Does he post in the Slack channel for everyone to hop onto the live stream?
He posts them before.
I think
like 10 minutes before.
Okay. Gotcha. I feel like he has a pretty loyal audience because he has Nucamp's a bit of a smaller channel. So I always wondered why those live stream numbers were up a little bit, but I think it's because he has a lot of loyal people wanting to support Nucamp.
Yeah, they're loyal. They're helpful. It's a good, cool bunch of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed a lot of his live streams. The Q&As I kind of drifted away from, but there were quite a few where, it's an instructor. I think Matt actually was on there one week, and there's some good streams that I did watch, but I don't recall Ludo like spamming anything. It was, a post before and I would see it, and sometimes I would join, sometimes I wouldn't, but I guess I never really paid attention to the numbers and how many people were in those streams.
I'm the only one that cares about that stuff. So okay,
that's why we watch you, Don. You get in there. We like that.
Oh, I do. I appreciate that. So I feel like I have a good amount of information. I think we touched on everything that I wanted to touch on. I'm going to challenge you kind of with a final question here. What type of student wouldn't be a good fit for Nucamp? What type of personality?
Lazy.
Mm-hmm. I think it's some of the critiques I see in Slack, or, sometimes you'll see somebody post like, oh, is this just like a glorified Udemy course? And, I think some people don't have the expectation that a lot of the work is self-guided. So I think that's a good expectation to go in there with, is that, you do meet Saturdays, but most of it is self-guided, and, you have to kind of hold yourself accountable and, do all the work and like read the resources they list at the end of the lessons to really be successful, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say if you are seeking a 0 to 100 bootcamp, Nucamp is not for you, but I think it can get you there eventually. Not by the end of the program, but if you are willing to put in the time, put in the effort, supplement, some extra work on your own, then it can be very valuable. I did feel like when I graduated and I started, there was kind of a now what scenario, and I'm working on projects, polishing up the portfolio. That's when I got like super, super excited. So I was trying to keep up. And when I could just take a breath and then revisit certain concepts, that's when I was like, this is what I want to do for a living. And it was just very valuable to me. So if you see these cool, polished up YouTube commercials advertising, this like, I don't know what Hack Reactor's curriculum is, but that's one of the cool ones I saw. And when I was trying to decide, I was kind of thinking like, oh, that seems like it could be 0 to 100. I don't know if it is or not. But this is more so like, I feel like it kind of got me to like 75% with the knowledge of what I need to do to get to 100.
Okay.
I agree. I don't know if it's as high as 75 for me, but I think it's just because like I have a whole life to do. So time is extremely valuable and I never have enough of it, which is a part of the reason why I chose Nucamp. So I think maybe it's more like 60 for me, maybe 60. And then you really have to do everything. You have to take advantage of those resource links that they give you after every lesson. You have to go in CodePen and you have to practice. They give you code challenges and a lot of third-party activities. Do them because you're gonna learn something that's not in the course. So it's important to do everything yourself. It's not expensive, but it's very time expensive. So you have to pay with time. And that's how you get better. So
that makes sense. All right. I really like how all of you laid out realistic expectations for students. I mean, again, that's the whole point of these reviews is I'm not here to sell any of the programs. I want students to have confidence that their expectations align with what the Coding Bootcamp's selling. So we get to talk about these share these transparent student experiences, do it in all my programs. So, I mean, it's a decision you have to make, is Nucamp right for you or not? But I always say this, if you are in doubt and, like if Nucamp is one of your top choices, but you're still in doubt, send Ludo an email, challenge him on the things that you're in doubt with. Seriously. I encourage you to do that with any program. That's pretty much it though. Yeah, this is awesome. I'm glad we did the Nucamp review. It's been a while. Let's go ahead and do our outros. Katie, if people want to reach out to you and anything else you want to shout out, where could they reach you?
Yeah, so I tried to make all of my socials the same thing. So my LinkedIn, GitHub, Instagram, Twitter, it's all Katy, Katy develops. And you can find me there on any of those platforms. Awesome.
How about you, Russ?
My door is always open. Add me on LinkedIn. Let's connect. However I can help anybody. I came into this very much as a beginner, and one of the things I'm able to do in my current role is mentor, and I would love to continue to do that as I get more knowledgeable. So anybody who has any questions about Nucamp, anything at all, reach out to me. LinkedIn is probably the best place. If you want to go personal, Instagram is the only other social media I have. It's my first and last name. That's about it from me.
Love it. How about you, Christina?
You can definitely get me on LinkedIn. It's the LinkedIn/IN/Christina-Slocumb. And you can do my Twitter. I didn't know I needed a Twitter, but apparently in the tech world with the podcast and everything, I needed a Twitter. So it's NYU Boss Mom.
Okay. Love it. All right. Well, yeah. Anyone watching, let me know. I also did I gave a request a little while back. I'm very curious if anyone actually does do the job hunting portion. Let me know how it goes, because I know that's pretty much brand new. I know Backend's still fairly new. So if your experiences were the same, or even if they differed, let me know in the comments on YouTube. But Katie, Ross, Christina, thanks so much for coming on.
Of course. Thanks, Don.